start maybe with David. You joined a very big ensemble and a very, elaborate and ambitious show. What was it like for you to join that group this past season?
Yeah, it's very nervous to join a show like that, but it's always nervous when you're on your own in your hotel bedroom before you meet anybody. Before you get to set, you're always, talking to yourself and talking yourself down and sort of getting very nervous. And of course, when you get on the set, particularly on our show, and I'm sure for everybody, the atmosphere is very collegiate. Everybody wants you to succeed. And our show is led by Andrew Lincoln, who I know, and he's a fantastic leading actor. I mean, it's great to work with him. Not just a leading actor on the sense that he comes up with the goods and he can do the work and he can play the character, but just the fact that he looks after everybody else on set. He leads from the front. He's the first guy on set. He's the last guy to leave. His professionalism is uppermost. And he looks after, and that filters down, and all great shows, I think, have that. They have that. Everybody wants that show to succeed. And we have a great crew as well. The other thing for us, and I'm sure for everybody, is the crew are fantastic. For me, coming from the UK, working on that show down in Atlanta, the crew are the people who really keep it together, and they work a lot more than that. There's no trailer for them to go back to when they're sort of off the scene. They're there all the time, and they work so hard, and I'm really admiring of them as well as the other cast, really.
Can you talk about the experience of finding your rhythm with Connie and Hayden? What the startup of Nashville was like for you?
Well, that's sort of the secret I think people want to know, and they don't teach you in acting school or any acting class that the secret is to be surrounded by great actors and great writers and everything like that. So I knew when I saw the script that I loved it, but when I heard who was cast, that it was Connie Britton. I'd been a fan for a long time through Friday Night Lights. I thought her work there with Kyle Chandler was some of the most real and authentic acting that I'd seen in a long time. Their husband and wife were as good as it gets in my mind. So on the one hand, it's a little daunting when you're about to step in front of a camera like that with somebody like that. On the other hand, I've been around long enough to know that if it works, it might really work. And the same is true with Hayden Panettiere, who I met through the audition process and was immediately supportive. And
Freddie, obviously you and Mira are such pillars of Bates Motel. Can you talk about the process of getting comfortable with her and inhabiting Norman?
Yeah, no, I guess it was certainly lucky that Vera and I got along. Otherwise you'd be spending a lot of time with someone having to fake it. So, no, it was always a really kind of collaborative effort, I guess, with Vera. And as everyone has been saying, they always, working with fantastic actors always inspires you to raise your game and to keep up with them.
Talk about the process of, working with such a big ensemble and making sure that you make those great contributions to every season.
Well, yeah, there's no competition that we feel, certainly, on our show. And really it comes from, we've talked about the crew and the other people, but also the great writing, Had the joy of getting to do Vince Gilligan scripts for 6 years, just it was tremendous. And working with guys like Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul, Anna Gunn, Betsy Brandt, it's just it's phenomenal. It's really it's just a matter of getting in there and trying to hold your own, because they're terrific.
Well, I think we're going on to year 8 that we've been doing this. It's always been pretty consistent. John Hamm is always lighthearted but focused, and as everyone else has said, that leads the group. You guys do table reads, right?
No, we don't. We do for the first one of the season. That's it.
Yeah, we stopped doing table reads as well.
Who here?
I actually
We
don't
don't
know
do
what's
table
going
reads.
on. I watch it for the first time.
Yeah, we always do table reads every episode.
Yeah, no, we don't do
No one else. Do you guys do table
We did
reads?
one and then gave up.
Wow, that's so interesting.
That was it.
They
No, we-
try,
We
but
thought
then
we
there's not
kind of
time.
well, you can
Yeah.
do it.
We don't
That's
have
really
we don't have
interesting.
time to do table reads.
Yeah.
It's like we just get straight onto the set and then we're going.
We do it at our lunch break. We do.
Wow.
Last day of the episode, we do the table read, and I think it's really informative for the writers. They get to hear.
Yeah.
But I mean, everyone has their own process, obviously, and it's
Then
working for you guys.
Then,
So
so
like-
people who don't have table reads, do you get the entire script? Do you? I mean,
Yeah, we get the whole script.
Yeah, we get the.
I just get my part.
Really?
just leave the mic and
Right.
walk away.
We do. We literally, all of us, all the actors, so they did table reads for like the first 6 episodes, but then we get so in it, there was 2 units going. In the end, they're like, we haven't got time to do table reads. So you sort of can get it snubbed by like the hair and makeup people, but they don't send out scripts, so you basically get your part.
Yeah.
So when you watch the end of the season for the first time, you're like, oh, so that's how that person died, or that's what happened.
Oh, come on. You don't sneak. You don't find a
You
script
find-
somewhere and like
I
read
know,
it in a corner.
I try, but sometimes you just get into work and you go into it. So
You're like your
I'm
own
missing
lines.
I'm missing about 4 or 5 sort of episodes within it. I've read most of them, but 4 or 5. I'm like, huh. Yeah, which
Our
is
scripts
amazing.
were redacted like it was
Yeah.
the CIA.
I was too, yeah.
Charles, you brought up something I wanted to talk about. I mean, you've all had experience in terms of doing the guest shots and being a day player. Does that kind of experience help you when you get your series role, having had that experience of, parachuting into shows, doing a day or two?
It's been definitely my path, and I wouldn't really trade it. I've been able to spend some time on some great shows with some amazing casts, and they have, virtually all of them, have made me feel very, very welcome, like a member of the family. But ultimately, it's different, and it's different. You're not quite home. So that's the difference in Nashville and stepping in. That's I'm blessed to say that's my home, and those people are my family.
I guess for me it was more a new experience coming to television. I mean, this is the first kind of TV series that I've done, so it was more seeing that change from film to television and making that transition. I mean, it's been great to, especially with the character that I'm playing, to have the time to develop a character, and there's no rush, there's no forcing a big transformation to take place in 1.5 hours or 2 hours. So the luxury of time and of building in subtleties is something I've really appreciated.
I'm sure I have some sort of a record for guest starring roles over the years. And I learned a lot. I mean, every one of those I've learned. It's a new set. You kind of have to, and you have to be good on every take because you're a guest star.
Yeah.
If it's a good take it's the time to do it. You don't have time to kind of. So for me, it was great. It was like great training.
Is the process of moving from show to show different in the UK in terms of?
No, the main difference is the amount of television. I mean, I do 6 or 8 episode TV in the UK, or two-parters or whatever. I've never done 16 episodes, which is what The Walking Dead is. And I have to say, I really like it. But it doesn't make any difference to you as the actor about how you approach character and how you go about your work. It's the same. We work to the same time scale, which is fast. I mean, it's the same here in the US as it is in the UK. You're on and you're doing it, and sometimes, like Dean was saying, you have to sort of slightly say, look, I know I got the lines in the right order, but can we just go one more time? But everybody thinks they want to move on. And it's a big machine that's rolling forward. It's when you get to those big movies that have got a lot of money, that's when it's a different craft for me, because everything slows down suddenly. And suddenly on TV I would have the morning to shoot a scene, and suddenly I've got the week to shoot the scene, and that's a different head for me. That's a really different. Suddenly I have to think differently about how I'm approaching the character, because time slows down.
As an actor, the most exciting part is the acting. Someone said the famous line is that they pay me to wait around and
Sean
I act
Connery.
for free. Exactly, because it's true. The waiting around is so tedious and so awful, but on television it has to move so fast that actually you are performing most of the time.
Do you prepare yourself differently if you know you're going to be in a scene where you're shooting people, where you have a physical altercation? Is that, for you as actors, does that take a certain preparation?
They're grueling days, those days. I mean, like, they're long days. Like, you're doing 18, 19 hours sometimes, and a lot of blood. But the great thing about it is, you were saying about the crew and stuff, it's you have such a well-oiled machine, and these people are so good at what they do, and they're absolute masters. Tim Van Patten, who directed that episode in particular, they just know exactly what they're going to get. They know it's so perfectly set up that you just go from that whole thing took 2 days to do, which on a film would have taken at least a week. I mean, if not 2, just to do something like that, because they're so at the height of their game. They know they have to get this, and yeah, you're exhausted by the end of it, but you want to go in and do it. Your adrenaline's going for that kind of thing. It's fun.
I find it really sharpens your senses, because there is a certain amount of danger involved, even with lengths and things like that. And if you're doing a complicated shooting sequence, which I've done a few, it's like they have these things that blow out the window, and if your hand's there,
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
and you're like, whoa, man, and you know, and the shot's coming through this side, and you got to make sure you don't point it at the guy's face. There's all these things that you're going through your head, and all of a sudden it's action. You know, it really sharpens your senses. I find that I have to, you know, really be, you know, specific. Otherwise, I'll get my, you know, my hand blown off.
You also feel that on the set with the crew. Everybody's sort of a little bit more like
On it, you know.
on their leaning
Yeah.
forward on their toes and ready to get it, because especially when you're doing a very active scene like that, I mean, the camera crew's just as they're a boxer in the ring with
Right.
you.
Yeah.
They're dancing with you, and they're doing it all day. So whenever I feel like I'm tired, I just stop a second, look around, and go, oh yeah, that's right. These guys were here long before me and will be here long after
be
me.
sweeping up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having said that, you know, I did 20 episodes with a sober deacon, and one episode where I fell off the wagon, and that one was probably more exhausting than all the other ones put together. So I hope I sober up quick, because I don't know if I could handle that.
And to the emotional point, you know, whether it's a big action sequence or a you know, big emotional arc, is it hard to let go when the shooting is done? Are these the kinds of things that sometimes stick with you?
No, I try to just leave it at the door, but sometimes they do. Oddly enough, you know, you can only wear a mask so long before it kind of gets you in the stomach. You know, if you're like kind of depressed or playing frustrated or stuff, it seems like I don't think it does, but then I'll get home and I feel like, God, I'm still pissed off, you know, or you still got something left in you, you know, and you gotta kind of shake it off.
But yeah, it is that. I haven't looked at sort of kitchen knives any differently. When I go home, I sort of go, they've all been removed from the apartment where I'm staying.
And that's where your family comes in, I think, or the people, you know, your people around you. That's when, you know, sometimes you think, oh, it hasn't affected me at all, and then it will come out somewhere else, and you just need someone to go, okay, you know, and it's that thing of, you know, it's hard to live with an actor sometimes in the sense that you feel it's not affecting you, and it is. You do take some of it home.
How about when you're, you know, when you're on your hiatus, when you're not in season, do you feel like, Vincent, do you feel like you live with Pete Campbell year round?
No, I don't live with Pete Campbell year round. I mean, I think most people here are pursuing other jobs or have other work to do, and you know, I leave Pete at the studio when I leave, and I mean, generally Pete is a misanthropic, depressed person, and I can relate to that in some ways, but in my own way, and so I leave that at the studio, and I've never had a hard time disassociating myself from a character. But you know, I mean, we all put on so many masks, and the great thing about film, television, stage, all of it is that we get to see behind that curtain. We get to see how these characters. We get to see all sides of these characters. Like Pete Campbell, no one at the office knows what goes on outside of the office. Really, he keeps that hidden. And likewise with his home life and his office, he doesn't let her really know what's going on at the office. So you get to see all sides of this character, and you get to portray all sides of their secrets and their demons, and it's really an honor.
What's that experience like when you do have different people coming in usually every week to work with? Is it hard to have have that same kind of camaraderie with different directors as you do with your showrunners?
I found it gives you more responsibility as an actor in some ways, to maintain your character arc, and you're the person who's kind of looking after your character, and of course the director will come in and have a different take on it, but your character isn't going to change dramatically depending on the director, just because they would have thought at the beginning it should have been slightly different. So in that way, I think you get more of a challenge.
That's something also I think that people have been on the show for a while. You start to get a narrow group of directors that you work with that understand the show, and I think I like that. It's better because I'm doing a new show now, and you know you have to kind of find it, because when you get a good director, it's great. I like getting good direction. You know, I like someone saying, oh wow, you know, add a little this, do a little that. It's going, wow, and it helps. But a bad director who gets in the way, man, it's a bummer. You know, so
It must be very hard, I always think, for the director, because you're coming onto a show that already has a format or a formula. So they're coming into something and they're trying and Well, sometimes you can't really try because you can't really put your stamp on something that isn't yours.
exactly.
Right.
So I think the interesting when you do work with the few directors that you sort of like home it down to like maybe 4 or something
Right.
like that. That's great. And then someone does come in and do something new, but it's very strange because it's suddenly. It sort of almost feels strange if they come over and try to direct your character
Yeah.
because you've been doing this for like 4 years. But no, I love it. Like I'm
Yeah.
still like, great, give me ideas. This is fantastic. But it's very strange because sometimes it's almost like someone trying to direct you in everyday life. I know me so
Yeah.
well. It's really strange.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's a sort of flip flops a bit
Yeah.
that thing. It's kind of difficult. But the good directors are so brilliant and
Yeah.
so easy to work with because there's really not much of a dialogue. You just know.
But that's the main difference from me coming from UK to US is the director. The director in the UK has ownership of the show much more than
Yeah.
they do in the US. So, you know, I'd be in the US and I'd be doing a show and I'd say to the director, what do you think? And he went, "What? Yeah, it's great." And there wasn't that dialogue happening. And like you say, then
Yeah,
you
it's
get to
interesting.
know, directors and they become, you go for a coffee with them or whatever, and you get a better dialogue with them. But in the UK, I have always felt in the UK and TV, I work for the director. That's who I work for.
Yeah,
And
it's their show.
it's their
Yeah, very
show,
much.
and you're
It's
working,
interesting,
even in
isn't it?
episodic television, they have it's for them to give you those notes. Where in the US, that's slightly not the case.